In this video, I'm going to be ranking 11 shoe constructions from worst to best. I'm going to be ranking them based on advantages, disadvantages, how durable they are, and also how easy they are to resole. Hopefully this video gives you the information you need, so when you are out buying shoes, you know exactly what you're getting. Let's begin. Segmented construction is when the sole is attached to the shoe with no stitching, but adhesive. This adhesive is generally solvent-based and is very strong. This makes the shoe cheap and is often seen in more mass-produced shoes. The downside is with heavy use, the sole can come attached, but generally when the sole comes apart, there is no way to resole them, except with using glue. There are some shoes that can be resoled, but this is an exception. And also if you wear through the sole, you'll have to buy a new shoe. So whether that you wear through the sole or the sole comes apart, you have to buy a new shoe. And also the leather tends to be low quality. Generally, it's not a high quality shoe, but you do get a more cheaper shoe. Now, while these shoes are cheaper, they just don't last as long. This construction is limited to simple footwear, such as sandals. It sews the upper to the outsole with the stitches coming out the side of the sandal. This results in a flexible and comfortable sandal with handmade aesthetic. And I'm not sure if you can get these resold. This construction dates back to the early 1900s in Italy. The upper leather is completely wrapped around the foot like a glove with no visible stitches and seams. The lining is then stitched across and the sole is attached with a Blake stitch. This results in a sleek profile that is lightweight, flexible and very comfortable. It's faster and less expensive compared to other methods. The soles are not easily replaced without damaging the shoe. The moccasin construction was worn by Native Americans and European settlers. The construction includes the upper, quarters and insole in one piece that's stitched together with a vamp apron on top. The shoe was originally designed with no hard outsole to make the wearer feel low to the ground and also make less noise. Today moccasins can have a rubber sole, they can have a leather sole. The advantage of the moccasin is it's flexible and comfortable for casual wear. However, they are not built for harsh conditions, and again, they are a more casual shoe. Generally, these are not to be resoled, but this will depend if you have a leather sole. The brass screw wire construction is a very simple construction dating back to the early 19th century. The upper is folded over and the outsole is directly attached to the shoe. Then a brass screw wire machine screws brass from a brass spool attaching the outsole, insole and upper together. The machine is set to a set depth to ensure all pieces are attached and that the screws do not go completely through the insole. This is very quick and requires no stitching. A common machine was made in England and there are not many left in the world. There are 3 in England, 1 in New Zealand. I think R.M. Williams has 1 or more because previously their shoes were made with this construction. The advantages of this construction is it's a very strong bond. It's also fastest of all the methods. However, I'm not sure how easy these would be to be resoled. It's very durable, commonly found in boots, but not dress shoes. But due to the limited amount of machines available, it's not very common anymore. The Blake stitch dates back to Liam Reed Blake from Massachusetts, United States. He became partners at the Singer Corporation in 1856, 1858. He sold the patent to businessman and engineer Gordon Mackay, and he made the machines available on the market, and it gained traction during the American Civil War. The Blake stitch is a common stitch today. The Blake stitches the upper and insole directly to the outsole. This allows the shoe to have a smaller silhouette and is common among loafers. The shoe has increased flexibility as it's made up of fewer layers, and this allows the shoes to be lower in price. While it can be resold, the problem is the stitches are going through the insole of the shoe, and it's difficult to match those same stitch holes when you get the shoe resoled. You probably get the shoe resoled about 3 to 4 times, depending on if you have a vegetable tan leather insole. If you have like a fiberboard insole, you probably won't be able to be resoled that many times. It is difficult to match those stitch holes. Eventually what will happen is that so many stitch holes in the insole that it'll be difficult to hold stitches and it'll be like Swiss cheese. You can get a cobbler to apply a thin piece of rubber to the shoe. Once that wears down, you can get a new one, and this will just protect that leather sole from wearing down. The more you get that Blake stitch resoled, you're shortening the life of the shoe. But overall, the Blake stitch is quite good. It makes shoes have a more smaller silhouette, but you just have to be careful of getting it resoled. Number 5 is the stitch down, and this other method that I cannot pronounce. The stitch down is leather comes over and is stitched down. You can have another stitch around the edge for extra durability. This construction is mainly done on boots, not dress shoes. But the problem is with this construction is when you get it resoled, because that leather comes down and folds out, you can lose the shape of the toe. So a cobbler has to be very careful to maintain that shape of the toe when he removes the sole. And also because that edge, if the cobbler sands down the edge to try and get everything flush, he can sand away the edge. It can be difficult to stitch because if you're sanding away the upper, you can't stitch that down. So that is just some downsides to it. But a cobbler can match the stitch holes, unlike a Blake stitch. However, it is more bulky, not as refined for dress shoes. A Norwegian stitch is a stitch that is just on the side of the upper, and it stitches the upper to the insole with a separate stitch. Another stitch stitches the upper to the midsole, and then another stitch stitches the midsole to the outsole. Then there is the Storm Welt. This is when a piece of leather is folded up in between the upper and sole and is stitched to the upper and insole. It acts like a welt, like in a Goodyear welt, but instead of being flat, it hugs up against the upper. The upper is then folded away from the edge, unlike shoes, with a Norwegian stitch and stitch down. Now this is said to prevent water getting into the shoe, but you could still get water coming down over it. Then you have a Norwegian Storm Welt, which pretty much combines all of that. This is more time consuming, making the shoe more expensive, and it is a bit more bulky, built for more rugged conditions. It's said to be more water resistant, but again, you could argue whether that water can come down anyway into the shoe, and because there's so many stitch holes, you're just adding holes for water to get into. But other constructions like the Goodyear Welt is still pretty water resistant, but you can get these shoes resold. Now the Blake Rapid is probably, I've never had a Blake Rapid shoe, but these ones sound really cool. So it uses a Blake stitch, but it's stitched to the insole, upper and midsole without the outsole. Then the midsole is stitched to the outsole with a rapid stitch going around the shoe. Now this protects the Blake stitch. This makes the shoe more water resistant, repairable, durable, and allows the sole to be easily replaced without replacing those Blake stitches. The downside is if you wear through that midsole, you have to get that replaced, and therefore you're going to have to get it Blake stitched. But again, just remember the same thing with Blake stitch shoes. You can only get them resold a minimal amount of times, so just make sure you don't wear down that outsole into the midsole or damage the midsole. Next is the hand welt construction. Now this is how shoes would have been normally done prior to the Goodyear Welt. You need less materials for this. You don't need a canvas rib like in the Goodyear Welt. This means you can have a thicker insole. What happens is the shoemaker, he attaches the welt by hand. This allows the shoemaker to use thicker thread with wax. You can have leather or cork go over the welt for added comfort. The midsole and the outsole is attached to the welt and sewn by hand. Hand welted shoes have more leather supporting the feet compared to a Goodyear welted shoe that needs cork to fill that empty space because of the canvas rib. You can replace the soles and the welt. The cobbler can use the same stitch holes. So as long as you maintain the uppers of the shoe, these shoes can last for years, if not decades. The only problem with these, it takes a long time to hand stitch a welt or a sole. So again, it's going to cost more. And hand welted shoes tend to be reserved only to bespoke or some ready-to-wear shoes, and these are expensive. A hand stitched welt is very beautiful and it requires craftsmanship. However, it's more expensive, and if you're new to shoes, this is out of your reach. The number one is going to be the Goodyear welted shoes. The Goodyear welted shoes is a very common construction. If you're new to buying high quality shoes, you probably find shoes that are Goodyear welted. The Goodyear Welt has its origins in 1862, and he patented it, and then someone else acquired it, and then Charles Goodyear Jr. acquired the patent from that. There was some problems with the design, then they worked on it, and then over time the machine got better, and then it is what it is today. Unlike stitching through the insole, the Goodyear Welt uses a canvas rib to attach the welt to the shoe. As mentioned before, this leaves a lot of empty space. This is often filled with cork for comfort. Then the sole is attached. This is attached by a machine as well. And this is just a very quicker process, lowering the cost of the shoes, but it is very fast and very cost effective. A cobbler can use the exact same stitch holes for resoling the shoe. So as long as you keep those uppers intact, the shoes can last for years or decades. Again, there is that downside of the rib. The rib can be damaged or wear through over time. You can get a new rib if it weakens or breaks or gets damaged over time. The Goodyear Welt has completely changed the shoe industry. Even though the hand welt is superior to the Goodyear Welt, the Goodyear Welt still offers benefits at a cheaper price. It allows people to enter into that market to get high quality shoes without having to buy bespoke or a very expensive ready-to-wear pair. So there you have it. There's my ranking of 11 best shoe constructors from worst to best. Let me know what you think in the comments and be sure to like and subscribe.